There was a season in my life when I honestly thought I was doing everything right. I had a full-time job with decent pay. I was also trying to grow a side hustle, something I hoped would give me freedom down the road. Every day, I woke up early, checked my emails, hopped on Slack, sat through back-to-back Zoom meetings, juggled task lists, replied to messages, posted on social media, read articles about how to be more productive, and even managed to squeeze in a podcast or two while cooking dinner. From the outside, I looked like a person who had it all together. But inside, I felt completely scattered. The weirdest part? I was always busy, but I couldn't tell you what I actually got done. My to-do list never ended. I went to bed each night with this uncomfortable feeling in my chest as if I had worked all day and still accomplished nothing that really mattered. And the next morning, I'd wake up feeling behind before the day even started. One day, it hit me hard. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. I had 4 tabs open, my phone was buzzing from group chats, and I was in the middle of responding to an email while trying to finalize a proposal for a potential client. My wife walked in and gently asked if I wanted to join her and our daughter for lunch outside. It was sunny, outtone of those perfect spring days you don't get often in Chicago. But without looking up, I snapped, "Not now. I'm working." She didn't say anything. She just gave a soft smile and walked away. But in that moment, I really saw myself, glued to a screen, chasing some invisible finish line, turning down time with the 2 people I love the most. For what? For inbox zero? That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen and opened my journal, something I hadn't done in weeks. I wrote one question at the top of the page. Why am I so busy, but so stuck? I stared at that question for a long time. And for once, I didn't reach for another productivity hack or a new app. I didn't try to plan my way out. I just sat with that discomfort. And then, a few days later, while scrolling through YouTube during one of those fake breaks where I was pretending to rest, I stumbled on a video review of a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. The title stopped me cold. Deep work? I thought. Is there such a thing as deep work anymore? Or are we just all skimming through life? I clicked the video, and within the first 5 minutes, I heard something that felt like it was aimed directly at me. The ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. That was the moment. It didn't feel like I was being sold a book. It felt like someone had just handed me a mirror. I ordered the book that night, and over the next few weeks, I read it slowly, intentionally. I started seeing patterns in my own life that I had ignored for years. I realized I had been living in shallow mode, reacting to everything, mistaking busyness for progress. And what happened next? It didn't just change how I worked, it changed how I lived. Let me walk you through the biggest lessons I took away from deep work and how applying each one helped me build a life that finally feels purposeful. One of the first light bulb moments I had while reading Deep Work was realizing just how much of my day was consumed by shallow work-low effort, low-value tasks that made me feel productive, but really weren't moving me forward. Cal Newport doesn't just talk about being busy. He challenges the very idea that most of what we do today counts as real work. For me, that hit like a gut punch. Because if I was being honest with myself, 80% of my energy was going into responding to emails, replying to Slack threads, hopping on Zoom calls, scrolling LinkedIn under the illusion of networking, and checking off meaningless micro-tasks just to feel like I was doing something. But the truth? None of that added up to anything meaningful. It made me think about something my high school track coach used to say, "Don't mistake motion for progress." Back then, he meant running around in circles during warm-up didn't make you faster. Now I realized it applied to my entire adult life. So I took a hard look at my schedule. I printed out a week's worth of calendar entries and put red circles around everything I did that felt shallow things that required very little brain power, no real concentration, and produced little or no long-term value. It was humbling. Meetings I didn't need to attend, emails I didn't need to send, tasks I took on just to avoid more difficult work. I had filled my life with noise because noise felt safe. But now, I wanted something more. I wanted clarity. I wanted progress. So I made a decision. I started actively protecting time for deep work, real, uninterrupted time to do the work that mattered. Not the easy stuff, not the reactive stuff, but the hard, focused, creative work that I knew would actually push me forward. I started small. I blocked off 90 minutes each morning and labeled it, "Do not disturb." No meetings, no social media, no phone. Just me, my thoughts, and the one thing I needed to make progress on that day. Sometimes it was writing a pitch deck. Sometimes it was outlining a course module. Sometimes it was pure thinking and journaling to plan my business direction. At first, it was uncomfortable. My brain craved distraction. I'd literally feel the itch to check my phone after 10 minutes. But I stayed with it, and slowly, something started to shift. Those 90-minute blocks became the most powerful part of my day. I began finishing high-leverage tasks in one focused session, things that used to take me days when I was multitasking and getting pulled in 5 directions. My side hustle, which had been stuck for months, suddenly started to move forward. I finally launched my own website. I pitched clients more confidently because I had actually created something worth showing. And I wasn't chasing deadlines anymore, I was ahead of them. But the biggest change wasn't in what I produced. It was how I felt. I started ending my days with a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. Not because I crossed off every item on my to-do list, but because I knew I had done something important, something deep. Something that required my full presence. It's funny, cutting shallow work didn't just give me more time. It gave me back my self-respect. I realized I didn't need to be in constant motion to feel worthy. I just needed to give my best energy to what actually mattered. And when I did that, everything changed. If you're listening to this and you're stuck in that loop, busy but not getting anywhere, I get it. I've been there. But I'm telling you, the path out starts by recognizing the difference between what's urgent and what's important, and making the bold decision to give your best self to your best work. When I first read the phrase, "You have to schedule deep work like a meeting" in the book, I actually laughed out loud. I thought, really? You want me to put thinking time on my calendar like it's a dentist appointment? It sounded a bit robotic, even excessive. But after a few more chaotic mornings where I planned to do meaningful work but got swallowed by emails, phone calls, and minor fires, I realized something. If I didn't schedule deep work, it simply didn't happen. I wasn't avoiding it intentionally, it just kept getting pushed aside by noise. I was hoping for the perfect moment of inspiration or a quiet afternoon to magically appear. But life doesn't work that way. Especially in today's world where distraction isn't just a possibility, it's the default. So I gave it a shot. I pulled up my Google Calendar and created a recurring event at 7:30 a.m. Deep work block, no distractions allowed. I set it for 90 minutes. I even gave it its own color-bright orange so I couldn't miss it. At first, it felt strange. I'd sit down with coffee, open my laptop, and stare. No emails, no Slack, no social scrolling. Just me and the task I'd picked the night before. It was uncomfortable at first, like walking into a quiet room after hours in a loud concert. But once I adjusted to the silence, something surprising happened. My brain started to wake up. I could feel my attention sharpening, like a lens slowly coming into focus. Ideas came faster. Solutions that seemed complicated yesterday now felt simple. I began making real progress on things that had been stuck in limbo for weeks, like the online course I had outlined but never built, or the client pitch I'd kept revising endlessly without sending. But here's the twist. It wasn't just about getting more done. It was about reclaiming control. When I scheduled deep work, I wasn't reacting to my day, I was directing it. I wasn't starting with other people's agendas, emails, texts, pings. I was starting with mine. And what's even crazier? Those 90-minute deep work blocks started to spill over into the rest of my day. Once I experienced what focused, uninterrupted progress felt like, I craved it. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. I stopped saying yes to meetings that didn't need me. I started protecting my time like it was my most valuable asset, because it is. Eventually, I built a whole rhythm around it. Mondays and Wednesdays became my big project days. Fridays were for reflection and planning. Even my team started noticing that I was online less, but producing way more. Here's one real result that shocked me. Within just 6 weeks of scheduling daily deep work blocks, I finally finished a digital product I'd been working on for 9 months. I talked about it, thought about it, outlined it, but never made real traction. With deep work time built in, I knocked out the writing, design, and setup. And when I launched it, the first week brought in more income than I'd made in 3 months of freelancing. But it wasn't just about money. The confidence I gained from actually finishing something that mattered more. I felt like I had reclaimed a piece of myself that had been buried under distraction and delay. The truth is, scheduling deep work isn't about being rigid or robotic. It's about creating a boundary that protects the deepest part of you, the part that dreams, builds, creates, solves, and grows. If you're tired of days slipping by with nothing to show for it, try this. Just one block. Put it on your calendar. Honor it like you would a client meeting. Give it your best attention. It might feel awkward at first. You'll probably want to bail halfway through. But if you stick with it, even for a week, you'll realize something powerful. You don't need more time. You just need more intentional time. And that single shift could change everything. I'll admit something that's a little embarrassing to say out loud. There was a time when I couldn't go more than 15 minutes without checking my phone. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. Because scrolling felt easy, comfortable, like a little escape hatch from the pressure of actually doing deep, focused work. I'd justify it with things like, I'm just catching up on industry trends. This is how I stay connected. I need it for networking. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I was using social media the way someone grabs a smoke break knot to gain information, but to break away from the discomfort of thinking deeply. Then, one line in deep work hit me like a punch to the gut. Clarity about what matters provides clarity about what does not. That was it. I had been drowning in noise because I wasn't clear on what actually mattered. I let social media blur the lines of what deserved my attention and what didn't. And the worst part? I didn't even realize how much it was affecting me mentally, emotionally, and creatively. So I decided to try something radical for someone like me. A 30-day social media detox. No Instagram, no Facebook, no Twitter, no TikTok, not even LinkedIn. I deleted the apps from my phone and logged out on my desktop. I told myself, this isn't forever. It's just an experiment to see what happens when I stop feeding the noise. The first few days were weird. I felt phantom urges to pick up my phone, like my fingers had muscle memory. I reached for it without even thinking. I'd unlock my screen, stare at it blankly, and then put it back down. It was uncomfortable. But after a week, something amazing started to happen. I could think again. My thoughts slowed down, not in a lazy or dull way, but in a peaceful, intentional way. I started to notice things I had been missing. the sound of birds in the morning, the feel of my daughter's tiny hand wrapped around my thumb, the way my mind drifted into deeper ideas during walks. I was no longer constantly comparing myself to other people's highlight reels, and that gave me the courage to just be present in my own story. But the biggest change was in my creative energy. I started journaling more. I came up with better business ideas. I finished scripts I'd been stuck on for weeks. I even rediscovered hobbies I had abandoned years ago, like sketching and reading poetry. It was like my brain had been trying to speak to me all along, but the static was too loud. And when I finally logged back in after the detox, everything looked different. I didn't miss it. I didn't feel the need to post. I wasn't even interested in scrolling. Instead, I started asking myself one important question before using any platform. Is this helping me live the life I want, or distracting me from it? Now, I still use social media, but on my terms. I set time limits. I batch content if I need to post for my business. And I take regular breaks to reset my brain. This isn't about being anti-tech. I'm not. But I am pro-intention. Because when you remove the noise, you make space for what matters. Real relationships, real creativity, real growth. If you're feeling scattered, drained, or like your thoughts aren't your own anymore, try stepping away, even for a week. Pay attention to how your mind shifts when it's not constantly reacting to feeds and notifications. You might be surprised at how quickly peace returns. By the time I was nearing the end of deep work, I had made some real changes, cut back on shallow tasks, created daily deep work blocks, and stepped away from the social media treadmill. But there was one deeper shift I didn't see coming. A shift not in how I worked, but in why I worked. One of the most powerful and honestly underrated messages I took from the book was this: doing deep work isn't just about being efficient. It's about finding purpose through mastery. That word mastery hit me hard. You see, before all this, I was a classic yes person. I said yes to every opportunity, every side gig, every collaboration. I spread myself thin because I thought that's what hustling looked like. But what I didn't realize is that by trying to do everything, I was doing nothing deeply. And that left me feeling hollow. I started asking myself a simple but uncomfortable question. What do I actually want to go deep in? I took a weekend retreat by myself, just a notebook, no laptop, no phone, and I wrote down every area of my life I was investing time into. Then I circled the ones that truly lit me up. The things I would still want to do even if no one was watching. Out of that list, only 3 things made the cut. 1. Writing with intention. 2. Building meaningful things like my podcast and business. 3. Being present with the people I love. Everything else was noise. And so, for the first time in my adult life, I started cutting back. I turned down freelance projects that didn't align with my deeper goal 7 if the money was tempting. I stopped trying to keep up with peers who were on totally different paths. I chose depth over breadth. It wasn't easy. At first, it felt like I was doing less. But over time, I realized I was actually creating more impact. The fewer things I focused on, the better I got. I started writing better. My ideas had more clarity. The clients I worked with noticed the difference and began referring me more often. But even more important than external results, I felt more whole. I wasn't just doing tasks. I was building something meaningful. Something I could be proud of. Something that had soul. One night, months after embracing this new mindset, I was sitting on the back porch with my daughter on my lap. We had just finished reading a book together and she looked up and said, "Daddy, I like when you don't have your laptop." And I realized she didn't just get more of my time, she got more of me. That's what deep work gave me. Not just productivity, not just focus, but the ability to show up fully to my work, to my family, and to myself. If there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this. We live in a world that celebrates hustle, output, and noise. But the truth is, the most meaningful work, the kind that changes lives, comes from depth. Whether it's crafting a story, building a business, raising a child, or learning a skill, depth is what brings joy, excellence, and fulfillment. You don't have to do a million things to matter. You just have to choose the right things and give them everything you've got. If I could sit down with the version of myself from a year ago, the one glued to his phone, buried in email, chasing deadlines but never catching them, I don't think he would recognize me today. Back then, my days felt like one long blur. I was reactive, constantly switching tasks, jumping from one thing to another, always feeling like I was one step behind, no matter how early I got up or how late I stayed awake. I wore busyness like a badge of honor. But deep down, I knew I wasn't getting anywhere meaningful. The worst part was that I didn't know how to stop. I kept telling myself, once I get through this week, once I finish this project, once I hit this goal. But that finish line kept moving. There was always more meetings, more tasks, more noise. And in the middle of all that noise, I was losing myself. I was exhausted, burned out, and constantly guilty that I wasn't being productive enough, and guilty that I wasn't truly present with the people I loved. Then deep work entered my life not as a quick fix, but as a mirror. It didn't just give me tips or hacks. It gave me a framework to reclaim my focus, and by doing that, to reclaim my life. Now, life feels slower, but in the best way. I don't mean that I do less. In fact, I've accomplished more in the past 6 months than I did in the year before. But the pace is different. It's intentional, purposeful, grounded. Here's what's changed. Mentally, I feel clear. I don't wake up overwhelmed anymore. My mind isn't constantly racing or scattered. I know what I need to do each day, and I give myself the space to do it deeply. There's less noise. Fewer tabs open both on my laptop and in my brain. Professionally, my work has improved. I attract better clients, write with more conviction, and finish projects faster because I'm not multitasking my way through them. I've actually earned more income while working fewer hours because I now focus on what really matters. Personally, my relationships are deeper too. When I'm with my daughter, I'm with her. No phone, no half listening. Just presence. My marriage has grown stronger because I'm not constantly distracted. I actually hear what my wife says. I laugh more. I rest better. And maybe most importantly, spiritually and emotionally, I feel aligned. I'm not just surviving my days anymore. I'm living them. I feel proud of the work I'm doing. It's no longer just about output. It's about impact. I create with intention. I rest without guilt. I say yes with clarity and no without shame. It's not that every day is perfect. I still mess up. I still get distracted. I still feel pulled in 100 directions sometimes. But now I have the tools to catch myself, to recalibrate, to come back to what matters. And the biggest shift? I now measure success differently. Before, success meant inbox zero, more clients, packed schedules. Now, success means clarity of purpose, depth of focus, and presence in my own life. It means doing one meaningful thing with your full heart rather than 100 things halfway. If you're listening to this and you feel like I used to stuck in a cycle of busyness, buried in distraction, and unsure how to escape, it's okay. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight, but you do need to take the first step toward focus, toward depth. And I promise you what's waiting on the other side is worth it. If there's one thing I've learned from this entire journey, it's this. You don't have to do more. You just have to go deeper. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed, to feel like your time isn't your own, to constantly chase productivity while wondering if you're even moving in the right direction. I've lived that version of life. It's exhausting. But here's the truth no one told me. Focus is not a personality trait. It's a practice. And like any practice, you don't have to get it perfect to get started. So if you're listening right now and thinking, that all sounds great, but I'm way too distracted, too behind, too scattered, I want to gently challenge that thought. You're not broken. You're just busy. And there's a better way. You don't need to quit your job, toss your phone into a lake, or go live in a cabin. You just need to start small. Block off 1 hour tomorrow for something that truly matters to you. Turn off notifications during that time. Resist the urge to switch tasks. And give that hour your full, undivided presence. That's it. And then, pay attention to how you feel afterward. Chances are, you'll walk away with more clarity, more energy, and maybe for the first time in a while, a sense of peace. That's the power of deep work. Not just in how it changes what you do, but in how it transforms who you become. If this story resonated with you, if you saw a piece of yourself in my journey, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment, shoot me a message, or share this episode with someone who's been feeling overwhelmed and needs a reminder that there's another way. And hey, if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to this podcast. I'll be sharing more personal stories, reflections, and lessons that have shaped my life in ways I never expected. Because we're all figuring this out, one step at a time. And sometimes, all it takes is one honest story to help you start your own. Thanks for spending this time with me today. Until next time, go deep, not wide.